So I want to go into greater detail about two aspects that I covered in the first part, and one of those has to do with the tax schedules, depreciation schedules, and how this affects the distinction that I referred to, socialism being a government of for people, and this other thing, this capitalist consumerism, for lack of a better term. If you have a short depreciation schedule, what that means essentially is you are allowing people that have a business to take the costs of them doing business and write that off against the amount of revenue that they receive. Then that amount of costs do not have to be paid in the form of taxes. In other words, they would conceivably recoup their capital investment in 3 years, but it doesn't actually work that way. You know, it has to do with just mostly like business equipment and things like that. Um, but anyway, aside from the details of it, just speaking in general terms, an incentive is created by short depreciation schedules for manufacturers to make products that last for a less duration of time. You know, there used to be I could remember there was a consumer durable expected lifetime of 7 years. In other words, a refrigerator or something like that, it's going to last for 7 years, and then you have to buy a new one. So for businesses, if you have a depreciation schedule of like 3 years or 5 years, people that manufacture equipment to do business, they're only going to make it last for that period of time. Either you're going to have it, um, you're going to have to buy some sort of service contract, or you're going to have to replace it. Because they figure, well, what the hell? You might as well go along with this because you get to write it off anyway, and you get to have nice equipment and so on and so forth. Well, what that does is it passes the cost of it on to the consumer. You know, businesses aren't going to stay in business just to break even. Businesses are in business to have profit, to realize profit. Um, so what it does is it hurts individuals. It might be great for business, and it might create a more uh, business activity. So this form of economic measurement, gross domestic product or whatever, might appear to increase from year to year, or increase like every 3 years or every 5 years. Uh, what it does is you might say to yourself, "Gee, I bought this water faucet, and it seems like they don't last very long anymore." Which goes along with everything. Goes along with automobiles, refrigerators. This consumer durables, which is pretty much the same idea as other equipment that's used for business, or because there's like a crossover between the two. Like for instance, I would love to be able to have a Vulcan uh, oven and stovetop and all that, which restaurants use. Now, uh, if these are if these are manufacturers that they only last for so many years, and then you have to buy a new one, you're paying a tremendous amount of money for a product that's going to have to be continually replaced. It's good for the economy, the way that the economy is measured, and it's good for business because they're creating these things and selling them. Okay, but it's no good for you because you have to come up with the money to keep replacing these things all the time. Yeah, the only income that you have is the income that you get from working for some business. You're not in business for yourself. The other uh, thing that I wanted to touch on was this thing with defense spending. People say, well, we have a defense plant in our area. This is the primary reason why people don't want to pound their swords into plowshares. What are we going to do if the defense plant closes down? We lose our jobs. So you get back to this job thing again. But if you stop and think about it, if you're going to make something to be blown up, the only way that you're going to sustain that level of growth is you're going to have to keep blowing them up, which means you're going to have wars. I wrote a blog some time ago. The cost of the Tomahawk cruise missiles is something like $1.5 million per missile. And when the United States decided to have their offensive war against Libya, they launched something like 102 cruise missiles in the first day. I didn't hear any Republicans complaining about that. And probably the people that make Tomahawk cruise missiles, I guess it's Raytheon or something, oh, yes, we're doing fine. We have, lots of business and all this. But what does it do for people? It doesn't do anything for people. But getting back to this thing with the problems of the Democratic Party, the problems of the Democratic Party were created by the Democratic Party. This whole thing with socialism, for example, Democrats are put on the spot. Are you a socialist? You're accused? The Tea Party is accusing you of a socialist. Are you or are you not a member of? Because that's essentially what they're doing. And the Democrats did that. All of this started when Truman was president. McCarthy, I don't know if he was a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't make any difference because his right-hand men, Roy Cohn, drag buddies with J. Edgar Hoover, so the legend goes, a Jew, with Robert Kennedy, a Roman Catholic Irishman. So that, they get the Mick and the Jew together and have this coalition. Don't look at us. It's the fucking commies. Don't blame the Micks. Don't blame the Jews. It's the fucking commies. And that's how all of this stuff is supposed to work. And one of the problems that the Democratic Party has is that they break everything up into these groups. We got the Micks over here. We got the Jews here. We got the Italians over here, and then the blacks. We got the blacks here, and they played all these different groups and try to satisfy all these different groups. Whereas the Republican Party is like, well, we're all Presbyterians and we're rather liberal about religion, so, another problem that they create is and I hate to say this about Nancy Pelosi because I remember watching the House of Representatives on C-SPAN back in the 80s, and I liked Nancy Pelosi. At that period of time, she seemed to be, the type of person that I was. I could relate to her. She's some person from California. She's upset with the way things are going. She's come to the federal government to try to do something about it. But it also seems that the longer that she stayed there, the more professional she's become. She dresses different. She has her hairstyle different. And her look is like, this is the way that conservatives expect women to look. She's got the hairstyle like that. She dresses like that. Now, I could remember when Reagan was first elected. And all of a sudden, all of these people, some of whom I knew from the hippie days, they had long hair, mutton chops and all of this stuff. All of a sudden, they're wearing business suits. They got their hair cut, and we start, some of us that just remain the way that we were, we're asking around, well, what's the story on this guy? Oh, he's not really like that. He just does that to get elected. It's like, well, somebody's got to tell these people that they're elected. They've been elected for a long time. well, it's every 2 years. Well, what's happened over that course of time, because Reagan, you're going back like, what is it, 20, 30 years, 30 years, is that you haven't kept pace with the evolution of society. Because the only people that you're playing to now when you dress like that, Nancy, are Tea Party conservatives. They're the only people that carry on like that anymore. I mean, look around at society. People have piercings all over, they have tats. Uh, Everybody smokes pot. The only people that don't act like this are people that are stuck in this time warp because they had a sufficient amount of money to remain in a state of comfort, and they just stayed there in like this time warp. And who are those people? Tea Party conservatives, people that run the press and the media, people that are on television. They don't represent the reality of American society. People don't go around wearing suits and ties. It's not how people are. Now, you might not think that that makes much of a difference, but it does, because it relies on this impression that, well, we're not really like this, but you are like that. That's the way that you are. So this whole thing about we're not really like this, we just do that to get elected, it doesn't work anymore, because people have evolved beyond that. So when somebody says, well, you're out of touch with society, you're out of touch with reality, it's true. It's irrefutable. Okay. But the Republicans aren't, because the Republicans are these sexually repressed assholes that think that Anthony Comstock is still alive. They're living in some time period that never existed, and people expect that that's what they're going to look like. They're still back in 1935. You don't have to do anything. It's just a business cycle. So if you want to change, if you want to have some sort of a change, it's the first thing that you have to change. You have to change yourself so that people could form a bond with you, so they could relate to you, so they could believe you and have some sort of trust in you. Because right now that is not happening. It's like, I hate to say it because Barack Obama seems to be a nice guy, but Barack, you are playing the role of Sidney Poitier. Guess who's coming to dinner? I'm sorry to say that, but that's the way it appears. And there's no question that people appreciate that and people expect that. But by and large, the people that appreciate and expect that are Republicans. And they're not going to vote for you anyway. So those might be superficial things. But if you have the guts to just be who you are and just show the people who you are, at least what you're doing is you're saying, here we are, this is your choice. And making them believe that they actually have one. Because the way I see it right now is most people don't see that they have a choice. And by and large, those are the people that no longer vote. And what's going to happen is you're going to have an increasing number of people that are just not going to show up to vote because they don't perceive that there's any distinction between the parties.